Professor David, very good to see you today. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you everyone for joining us today for ICW. And to get us started, I did want to do an intro. I'm actually logging on from my phone instead of my laptop. For whatever reason, it doesn't want to cooperate with me today, but that's all right. There's always more than one way to skin a cat, right? So without further ado, I would like to go ahead and introduce our special guests today. And Professor David, tell us what time it is where you are right now, just to indulge us.
I have to check because I've been at it since early morning. It's 4 o'clock. It's gone 4 o'clock.
It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so not too bad.
Not
but
too
you've
bad.
been at it, and I thank you again for being at it one more time with us. So Professor David Clutterbuck is one of the early pioneers of developmental coaching and mentoring, and a co-founder of the European Mentoring and Coaching Council, author of more than 70 books, including the first evidence-based titles on coaching culture and team coaching. He's a visiting professor at 4 business schools. He leads a global network of specialists, mentoring and coaching training consultants, coaching and mentoring internationally. And I have to say, I'm one of his students. I did during the pandemic, 2020, I did the team coaching program with Professor David and learned so much in implementing those things even today. Again, it is a pleasure and an honor to be hosting Professor David Clutterbuck this afternoon, this morning, and evening for some of you. And without further ado, I would like to turn the table over to Professor David Clutterbuck.
Thank you very much. And welcome everybody. I usually like to say, when people ask me what I do, I say I'm a compulsive scribbler. There's always another book. In fact, I'm 76 in a couple of weeks' time, and I've already done 76 books. So I'm trying to keep the numbers up. And I wasn't writing any when I was in Lapis. But I guess when I look back, I'm one of the very few survivors of the original pioneers of coaching way back in the beginning of the 1980s and before. I sometimes say that virtually everybody else is either dead, deaf, or demented, and I'm definitely going deaf. So but keeping in line with the technology is, I think, a really important part of the evolution of coaching and coaching practice. We've got a lot of threats at the moment, potentially. We've got ChatGPT. How many, just show some hands, how many of you actually experimented with ChatGPT? Yeah, quite a lot of you, but perhaps most of you. And it's fine when it's 50% right, but there's 50% wrong that you have to worry about. Is it going to replace coaches? Well, that's part of what I'm planning to talk about now. So I'm going to try and cover the themes of who is at threat from new technology and how, and whether you should really be scared of artificial intelligence in particular. Some of the challenges that technology poses, but I'm going to look at the Coach AI partnership as well, because there's a positive side to all of this as well. The great academic Linda Grattan recently produced a book called Redesigning Work. and part of her conclusions is that just like every other major technical revolution or technological revolution over the last 300 years, it destroys lots of jobs by taking routine work and making it easier to do. But at the same time, it creates more jobs because it makes whatever the technology did much more available to people and increases demand. And so if we can keep up to date with the technology and work with the technology, that can help our coaching practice to thrive. If, however, we can't, then we have some real challenges in the future. And if we put this in line with or against the whole process of evolving process of complexity. We've identified 10 levels of complexity that coaching can address, from simple basic skills coaching all the way through to coaching the meta system. Team coaching sits somewhere in the middle of all this. We need to be able to work with complexity. And artificial intelligence can help us to do that by simplifying the complexity to a significant extent, if we have the skills and the tools and the mindset to work with it. I created 30 years ago a term which you may have come across, called simplexity. It's the art of making complex things simple but not simplistic. And I think that's what we're looking at, how we use the technology for this. But let me take you through some of the thinking around AI, and please do feel free to interrupt me. I think I've got 30 minutes just to present, and then we'll have some questions. I think that's correct. If not, somebody will tell me. But as a philosophical point, everything that seems new right now, and we discussed today, will just seem normal in 5 years' time. And that seems to be a general rule. Artificial intelligence is made up of algorithms, and that's its strength, and it's also its weakness. We are also made up of algorithms. The cells in our body are basically algorithms. So we've got this term AI, and we've also got the things called coach bots as well. And ChatGPT is somewhere in between a coach bot and an AI. So a coach bot, it reproduces human algorithms and applies them more rigorously and constantly. It's just a tool. A basic AI can learn and adopt human algorithms. It can develop new algorithms through experimentation. So it's an adaptable tool. An advanced AI able to pass the Turing test, that you can't tell it's a human being, although somebody did point out to me there is the reverse Turing test. The reverse Turing test says if you can't tell whether it's a human or a robot that you're listening to, that questions your intelligence. I'm not sure I completely go along with it, but it seemed a nice idea. It seemed a very clever idea. Basically, the advanced AI predicts human interaction and predicts human responses. So it's a collaborator with us if we allow it to be. A super AI, which we're beginning to see the germs of, is intentional and to some extent self-aware. Now we're nowhere near getting a self-aware computer, but it can, or indeed one that can exhibit curiosity, but it can fake both of them pretty well. And so what we've got here is in the super AI will have elements of emotional intelligence built into it, but it still won't be at anything more than the very basic human level. But that's where we begin to see them as a real partner in what we do. So there's an evolution here, and we shouldn't be fooled by the fact that coach bots are mainly pretty clunky and inaccurate. What AI does very well, tasks that are repetitive and relatively simple. It can do tasks that can be broken down into lots of simple algorithms very easily. It can do tasks where the context is stable and predictable. And it can continue to do the task time after time and with much more accuracy. If you go to a pharmacist to get a drug prescription, I forget the percentage, I think it's 1 or 2%, 1 or 2 instances in 100,000, they'll get it drastically wrong. For an AI, this is tens of millions of times you can do it without getting it drastically wrong. So we've got some big differences there. There have been some experiments in Southern California with the AI therapists. They can register expressions that are too fleeting for a human to identify. They can more accurately recognize signs of stress in somebody. While they're having the conversation, they can analyze patterns in the conversation as it happens in a way that we can't. They create an accurate record of previous sessions. And there's no parallel processing to get in the way for a computer. So the computer's own stuff doesn't intervene in the same way that humans might do. And interestingly, people marginally prefer the AI therapist because they feel less judged by it. I was told yesterday about an experiment where an experienced coach was coached by a human and on through text, so she couldn't actually see or hear some of them, but coached by a human and coached by an AI, and was asked when asked which one was the human, chose the AI. So there's a lot of things happening here. That it's actually going advancing very fast. And for me, the ultimate robot challenge. Apparently, next year, a Japanese company is about to release a robot that can tidy children's bedrooms. That's perceived to be the ultimate challenge in robotics. I don't know why that's so. I don't know. What AI can do that's really helpful in partnering, it can assemble an experiment with all sorts of miscellaneous data, and humans can develop creative solutions from that. It can also observe and quantify the whole picture. People, because of the way that our brains filter information out, otherwise we'd go nuts to just too much information going in. It can quantify the whole thing, whereas we have to be very selective about what we notice. And that's a strength and a weakness. So what we pay attention to is important. Somebody who's on the autistic spectrum, one of the issues that they have is that they don't have their filters just to actually screen out most of the noise and interference are not as effective as the rest of us. But then they see more, there's something in here between the two. Pattern recognition used to be something that humans could do better than AI. AI can now do it better than human, because it can see a much wider volume of patterns. So, but when it comes to making a judgment about the meaning of patterns, so for example, looking at a scan of somebody's lungs, for example, you still need the human in there to make that judgment. What AI can't do, it can't help with the tasks that need a deep understanding of changing context. It can't cope with conflict, with the tasks that involve a conflict of values. So coaching around ethical issues is something that's not been able to be cracked yet. It can't extrapolate from one context to another very well. They can do one thing very well, but only one thing. The problems, of course, as we've seen, are that algorithms can reflect the biases of the programmers. Hence, that's why you're more likely, if you're Black, to be run over by a self-driving car, because the programmers were mostly white and basically used mostly white faces for their development. They can oversimplify financial issues as well, complex situations. Hence the financial crash 15 years ago, when everybody was using the same algorithms, so the oscillations in the system caused the whole system to collapse. We see this increasingly, and for some reason that's not working. I'm just doing my notes and something isn't allowing me to go on. 1 second, if you'll bear with me. I don't know why my program is not working. There we go. Okay, so here we go. I love this quote from the Times, Sunday Times in the UK. Question: how do you end up with an AI that's white and male? And the answer is, let Google design it, which is not very kind on Google, but it's a real problem. When we see AI coaches, we can expect them to be much more expensive initially to create, but much cheaper to use. So they're going to be really useful in high volume situations. They also will have the advantage of being available on demand. Whereas coach bots typically provide very simple algorithms for relatively simple and frequently met business issues. They can also provide instant access to know-how and expertise when it's in a simple linear context. But they're really of very limited value when we're talking about personalized or complex adaptive situations. They can help us see patterns in those, but they cannot really help very much. And there's no likelihood of them being able to do so for some time. So human wisdom and human judgment are critical things that they can't bring, along with humanity and all of the things that go with humanity. So the relationship is the critical thing. Now, we are seeing people forming relationships with online avatars Okay, that's something that we have to watch and see what happens. But essentially, they can't. There are so many things that are about being human that an AI and a coach bot can't do. So some of the things that we'll basically be seeing is tomorrow's coach bot can become, or sorry, today's coach bot can become tomorrow's AI. Tomorrow's AI can become a super AI. If we compare humans versus AI, robots sometimes outperform humans at routine diagnosis and sometimes vice versa. All of the evidence seems to suggest that combining human experts and AI in decision-making usually works better than either on their own. And we see that in, for example, playing chess. The best chess masters are not AI and they're not humans. They're a combination of the two. If we look at intelligence and what we mean by intelligence, humans, we've got general intelligence. We can apply learning in many different situations and contexts and swap between them. Computers can't really do that. So an AI has the ability, as weak intelligence, it can do one thing really well. Human brains aren't computers, although ChatGPT has used a lot of the similarities with human brain architecture to try and create its algorithm of structure. We store information in a totally different way from computers, and whereas a computer is basically two-dimensional, it's on or off, the architecture behind a human brain is multi-dimensional. We see something as a fleeting flash of a fraction of a second, but it's when a lot of neurons fire, but it's a very different way. That's why the process of intuition is something that only a human brain can do so far. And so with a computer, we get breakthroughs or creative breakthroughs by following the rules. Humans create breakthroughs by breaking the rules. And that's the difference between competence and mastery. And so if you look at the human brain, the cortex is very slow at learning. It needs a lot of examples, whereas the hippocampus is a super fast learner. It learns things quickly. We need both. And basically, when we sleep, that's when learning from the hippocampus becomes embedded in the cortex. But interestingly, the deep mind AI also sleeps. It's learned to review and refine its learning when it's not actively engaged. So we're seeing the barriers between human brains and AI slowly disappearing. There's a lovely quote from McKinsey in a study that they did. They said, as the value of human prediction falls, the value of human judgment goes up, because AI doesn't do judgment. It can only make predictions and then hand them off to a human to use his or her judgment to determine what to do with those predictions. So all is not lost. AI can recognize emotions. It can't feel emotions. It can deduce emotions better than humans can from the analysis of written or spoken words. It can project empathy even if it doesn't feel it, but it can't do compassion. It can innovate, but only by experimenting with combinations. It's got no capacity for imagination yet. I think the idea that AI can achieve insight is also not tenable at the moment. When we achieve insight, we have a strong emotional response to something. We get stuck in our thinking. And then suddenly insight strikes us without warning. We stop thinking about something and then the insight comes. We can't explain how we've solved the problem. We just know that we have, and we probably weren't even thinking about it at the time. The solution appears suddenly and we know it's correct. None of this is what happens with an AI. So AI can never be truly creative. And I love this quote from New Scientist in 2019. The value of AI might not come so much in making machines that act like humans, but stopping humans act like machines. That pretty much captures it, I think. So who's at risk? Well, high risk. Coaches who are at the basic level of coaching. We've identified over the years 4 levels of coaching. Models-based, where you do coaching to people, process-based, where you do coaching with people, the discipline, coaching as a discipline or philosophy, where you are being a coach, So you integrate who you are with what you do. And systemic eclectic coaching, where basically you hold the client while the client has the conversation they need with themselves. At each level, you do less, and you're much less concerned with process. And in our current research on coach maturity, it's very clear that as coaches progress and grow, they give up all of that process stuff. It becomes less and less relevant. If you're still basing your coaching on the grow model, then actually AI can already do it better in most cases. Now, therefore, you've got to find things that you bring from your humanity to compensate. If you're dealing at other levels of coaching, then it may be different. Certainly, if your coaching follows a predictable pattern, if you know where the conversation is going, it's not coaching, we might sometimes say, but if there's a predictable formula, that's in danger. Immediate risk is, or intermediate risk rather, or medium risk, basic level coaching for behavioral change. And then at low risk, we're talking about transformational coaching and developmental team coaching, anything that involves wisdom. So if we talk about wisdom, there's three kinds of wisdom. There's lean wisdom, being very knowledgeable about a particular topic. There's broad wisdom, which is how you reflect on life experience, both your own and other people's. There's meta wisdom, which is bringing together lots of multiple shifting perspectives and bodies of knowledge in new ways. We are operating in the broad wisdom and meta wisdom states. Most of AI is operating in the state of lean wisdom. So if we have a coach AI partnership, what we have to do is to have how do we work best with all this flood of information we can get. And so we basically, the AI partnership gives us real-time information about what's going on in the conversation, in the client, and in the coach themselves. It gives us instant access to sources of relevant and potentially relevant data. It makes suggestions to you as you go along, which could be really unhelpful sometimes, as I found the other day, when in the middle of a training course, suddenly Siri came on and started suggesting books that people in the course might like to read. Where that happened I have no idea, but that was not what I expected. You can check your intuitions using the AI. And you can, once you've done the coaching session, you can review it in depth, not only listening to it, but using algorithms or programs to analyze what happened. And when did you start to lose it with the client, or when did the client think most deeply? All of those things you can get. Could you make the questions, the wording of the questions better? So every coaching conversation is a learning process for both the coach and the AI. Now, some of you may be working for one of the platforms that claims to democratize coaching by putting it out there. If that platform is recording conversations, you might wonder what's happening to those recordings. Those recordings are the resource from which an AI can learn to be a more effective coach. So the more that these platforms gather thousands upon thousands of coaching conversations and analyze them, the more that you're contributing towards making the basic level coaches redundant. Now that is sobering, I think, potentially. And so if you're going to work with an AI as a coach, it can help you with the emotional monitoring of the client. What are they thinking, and so forth. It can help you look at different scenarios, find hidden patterns in the conversation. If you get stuck, it can help you there. And it can also give you what-if scenarios. So it can help you to explore situations where combinations of elements lead to different outcomes. So you can use it as a structure to help you do that, helping people make difficult decisions that are personal or business decisions. So the AI does all that complex reasoning, leaving you to actually support the client in the thinking around it. So if you want to make the coach AI partnership work, things to think about. What am I not noticing? What patterns are emerging? What other bodies of knowledge might be relevant? What's too complex for me to analyze? How can I test my intuition? These are all questions we'd ask from this perspective. And there's the whole cultural concept as well. If you don't have a word for a concept, you don't have the concept. If you're dealing with somebody from a different culture, basically the AI can actually help to throw up these potential disconnections. So when the AI can look at similar issues and similar situations from multiple cultural perspectives and linguistic perspectives, it can suggest so many more concepts, so many more lines of inquiry, so many more metaphors than a human could access on their own. And so I think we really are here in a new world. And of course, it's not just for coaches, it's for supervisors too. There's no way that we can imagine at the moment an AI being an effective supervisor. The skill set is just too broad. But it does have a role to play in supervision. For example, when the supervisor shares a model or a concept with a coach, the AI can bring that up automatically so that they can look at it on screen together, whether they are in the same place or virtually, and go through that model and the basics behind it. If you've got the recordings, the AI can do. If you've got the supervisor's AI talking to the client, to the coach's AI, you can actually do much deeper analysis of the conversations that the coach has. It'll identify the decision points, for example, that you had there, and then they can work together, the two AIs, to test and explore this hypotheses the supervisor has about what can happen. However, there's lots of challenges here. Client confidentiality is at risk here. What do we do about the data overload? How can we start if we have too much data? If we are too reliant on the AI, we become the computer or the one who's being controlled. So who's in control of the coaching conversation? And a question that was raised in Singapore that I found really interesting: how smart does a coach have to be a partner with an AI? Can you do this if you're not a mature coach and you're not an intelligent coach? I don't have an answer to that. What I do have is lots of visions of how this is developing. Some of you may have had some experience of virtual reality. Basically, if you have, you'll know that one of the areas of potential is that you instead of meeting your human coach in a virtual reality room, you meet your AI coach and their avatar in a virtual reality room, and you go for a walk with your AI coach. Fascinating. So what we're also looking forward to is actually having the AI coach avatar in the virtual room with you. So you've got three people there. You've got the coach, the client, and the AI having a walk together. Doesn't that blow the mind? Oh, by the way, there's one other thing I should say. How do you know I'm not a robot? There we go. So I'd be delighted to have your comments, questions, challenges, or whatever.
That's fascinating, really. Thank you so much for the... I have a question, because at the beginning you talked about how someone had a session with a therapist that was a person and another that was an AI, and the person chose the AI.
Yeah, thought they were the human.
So here, yeah, thought that they were the human, exactly. So here the AI was able to show, because you said that the AI can show empathy but cannot have compassion or have feelings and emotion. So how come a human is falling into the trap? Because at the end, what we want as coach is make sure that we're giving the support to the client, right? So here the client is getting a feel of a human feel, let's say, from the AI. So
Well, you have to remember this experiment was done through text, so that the communication channels are much are truncated, so it's narrower. Had it been done with an avatar, for example, or it might have been different.
Okay. Thank you.
It's still an interesting indicator, though, isn't it?
Completely.
I think we see is it Swelly?
Yes, hi. Thank you for wonderful presentation. I have a question. Are you familiar with the researcher from Oxford, University of Oxford, Harish Bhaskari? I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right.
That rings bells. Go on, say more.
Yeah, he says that, I'm going to quote him because it's easier that way. He says that via a network of neurons and synapses, the brain can process and store vast amounts of information simultaneously using only a few tens of watts of power. Conventional computers can't come close to this sort of performance. And why am I saying this? Because I'm looking into how the body, our human body, can react and can use our inner powers to adjust with the upcoming AI. And in my view, when you put the I before the A, we are in the right track.
Lovely, I like it. Yes, we have to always, if I come back to the point about being human. Yeah, we it's our humanity that distinguishes us, and there's so many things, factors behind that. But if the more that we try and be and see ourselves as process-based coaches, and doing coaching, the more at risk we are. Being a coach is something radically different. Unfortunately, when we've done coach assessment centers in the past, we haven't done one since pre-COVID, but depressingly, a very high proportion of the coaches that came for assessment were still basically doing coaching to people. They were following a formula and a process. I hope that's changed with greater education and so forth, and coach education, coach accreditation. But I'm not sure. We have a paper coming out shortly, which says, what if everything we thought we knew about coach education were wrong? And it's questioning this emphasis on teaching coaches more and more tools and techniques, as opposed to teaching them to use themselves. And that's a whole interesting area.
It's a meta, as you mentioned, I think, by bringing the more that you listen and process and do not process a process, the more you are being human to the coach as a coach. Yeah. Did I get that right?
Absolutely, yes. We're trying at the moment, we've got this project, we're trying to create 5 million school-age coaches and mentors globally. Wow. Part of the emphasis is avoiding focusing down too hard on methods and tools. It's much more about them understanding themselves and their power to support and help others and to have meaningful conversations.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Salish, yes.
Yeah, hi, David. I was in your systemic team class as well. It's been great. Thank you. So related to this conversation, so some of the competencies, at least ICF on one-on-one coaching does, I think are becoming slowly irrelevant. What's important to you? Why is it important to you? But thinking more systemically, I think there is more value we can provide as we go up the chain. So I wanted your comments on that. And my second question was, you said about 4 levels of coaching. I got simple task coaching, team coaching, and meta system. If you could explain that 4 things a bit. And if you have any book on that, it'll be a great reference. Thank you.
Okay, so taking the first one, I think there's an assumption between the competence and the competencies approach is that you have some things that you do as a coach, and there are things you do. And so at an ACC level, you do it to this level. And then when you go to a PCC, you do it's the same competency, the same things, but you do them better and more deeply and all the rest of it. And then an MCC and so forth. The evidence from our research says that's not true. That actually, when you shift from one level of maturity to the next, you leave behind most of what you learned before. And when we've talked to coaches about, very experienced coaches about their journey, one of the first things they leave behind is goal obsession. Yeah, and the need to have a very clear goal at the beginning, because goals actually emerge as you go along, or they evolve and change, as a Harvard study found. So I think we have to question the role of competencies they are, and that's what that article about is particularly about. But maybe this is a stage in the evolution that we've had to go through. So it's not I don't see it as a deep criticism. And I've forgotten what the second thing was that you said.
You mentioned the 4 kinds of coaching.
Yeah, there are actually 10. There are actually 10 levels. Now you're going to test by memory now. But level 1 is just skills, helping somebody with skills and development. Level 2 is much more about behavioral change. Level 3 is helping somebody see themselves in the context of the systems around them. So we're into systemic coaching at that point. Level 4 is helping the team leader create a coaching culture in their team. Level 5 is team coaching for basic problems that particular teams have. Level 6 is coaching the team within its system. So if you like systemic at level 5, complex adaptive systemic, looking at the whole, how the team influences the system in which it's a part and how that system influences it, will be the next level. Then we go up to teams of teams, and then through functional coaching, organizational coaching, and then meta coaching is looking at the big systems like water wars, for example, which we're going to see a lot more of. Looking, nobody gains but everybody loses when you end up in conflict. But arbitration isn't good enough. We actually need coaching to help people understand how the whole system works, so that they can bring about change, so that they can find solutions that are optimum for the whole system, and therefore all the people involved in that system. So that's the 10 layers. I remembered them. I'm doing well. The 10 layers that we've identified of complexity in coaching. I find it quite fascinating when we talk about systemic team coaching. We're talking about the space between complicated and complex adaptive. When we talk about complex adaptive systemic space coaching, we're talking about the space between complex and chaotic. And increasingly, as coaches, we'll be working in that area between complex and chaotic.
Thank you, David.
Okay, so Jinan.
So David, as a prolific author, I'm curious what your thoughts are on the generative AI and attribution. So as a coach using these tools, how do we have responsibility to the practitioners that are generating new ideas, and also leverage the capability of that mashup that AI does?
We don't really have any clear answers of that. We've got no reliable research in this area. So the best I can offer you is opinion, but it's, we have very little real data. I think I go back to everything that we have. If it's a tool, we have to understand what the tool does before we use it. And as you see, a lot of people are calling for a halt to AI development. Now, I don't think that's realistic. But the reason they're doing this is because we don't actually understand how the tools we've created work anymore. And although the European Union has passed laws that you've got to be able to explain to somebody why the computer or the algorithms refused their mortgage application, for example, but it doesn't know. It can't work it out. There's no path to follow it back. So I think we have to constantly stop and pause and reflect. Why am I doing this? You know, what's the impact of doing this? If I make a comparison, one of the things we found with team coaching is that a lot of coaches have assumed that you just blunder in and administer some kind of diagnostic like DISC or Hogan or something like that in order to understand the team, not realizing that that's actually narrowing down the scope of what you're trying to of discovery to something that may actually not be that relevant to the context and situation of that team. The same, I think, taking that same analogy, you know, we have to understand the context in which something is being operated as best as we can.
Fair. Thank you.
Professor, we have questions in the chat. So
Go ahead.
Eric is asking, how can we keep in touch with you and continue to be aware of your research? Do you have a newsletter or something?
Yeah, well, if you sign in on my my website, which is clutterbuck-cmi.com, you can get hold of my regular blogs and articles. I produce roughly three blogs or articles every month. So there's a constant flood. Many of them are based upon research that we've been doing, or things that have come out of supervision in particular. One of the great things about being a supervisor is that coaches bring you the most complicated, difficult things that they've encountered. That's a wonderful, rich resource that's stretching and challenging, but makes us aware of things that we don't know. So we have to go and then find out, develop new frameworks and so forth. I find that's one of the things that keeps me going. Yeah. I could retire to somewhere and go and you know, grow dahlias or whatever, but hell no, I'm having too much fun.
We can feel it. There is Rogerio who is asking, is there a reference for the levels of coaching complexity for those interested in learning more?
You should find. I'm not sure if we posted a blog on it yet, but if it's either there available on the blogs, or it will be posted soon. But if you'd like to just send me an email, we can send you the article anyway.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can also, of course, connect with me on LinkedIn and Facebook. I'm easy to find. Yes, please.
Michigan. Yes. So, Professor, I work with an organization that I'm already seeing this, the combination of IA and the coach, and it has elevated my coaching experience with the clients, and the clients are having a quicker turnaround. As a matter of fact, I tell my clients when I meet them, they will experience a shift between 3 to 4 sessions. They'll just, all of a sudden, we're revamping on what goals look like because they're experiencing their breakthrough sooner than later. And I wonder, though, for those of us who have private practices, how do we begin to adjust, bring this into our private practices? What is it that we need to pay more attention to? What tools are out there for us to start to bring into our private practices so we could stay relevant to the time?
I think we're still in the stage of developing the toolkit for independent coaches. One of the routes that I think is a dead end, or sort of taking us in the wrong direction, is to get overly reliant on bots, on coach bots that come in and do an analysis of something, because the analyses are usually far too limited to be able to get the richness of discovery that we need. And we've seen time and again, we see the issue that they focus attention on the wrong thing. From an individual point of view or a team point of view, it's not what they want and need to work on. It's what the tool has thrown up for them to do. So what's happening here is that the use of a bot or an AI is amplifying a problem, which we would have been able to see had we actually sat down and interviewed the person.
Thank you, Professor. Man, how time flies when we're having fun. I blink and we're already close to our time. I want to open up the floor again just for a last check. Does anyone else have any questions while we have the professor at hand right here? No. Well, Professor, I would like to give you a round of applause, and I know many of us will join me. And to say graciously, thank you so much for just carving out this time to elevate our minds and just bring deeper insight to how the future is looking for us. And we're wishing you all the best, and we're going to keep following you and gleaning from your wisdom. There's also the professor wisdom, Professor David Clutterbuck's wisdom.
You know,
Thank you.
I have this thing. You know, the professor thing. I really have a strong anti-ego. So it's just Dave or David for me. I get my kicks out of seeing people actually growing their own awareness and understanding. That's much more interesting for me. Thank you all for doing me the honor of being here and listening. Please do connect with me in one way or another. We're producing so much material now from our studies. And with the next thing that's coming out is a book next month, I think, on managing coaching for organizational politics.
Awesome.
Yeah, so of course, none of you work in organizations with any politics in them.
Well, from my MBA studies, there are at least a minimum of 6 different types of politics. So I'm already interested.
Well, actually,
Politics in the corporation.
I can't resist. One of the things that I didn't say is one of my roles is as I chair the research committee at the London Comedy School, looking at well-being uses of laughter and comedy. And I was told the other day about coaches in Eastern Europe, students in Eastern Europe taking their MBAs. And I always thought that MBA stood for more boring academics, as you would. But I'm told, no, there is a very high divorce rate amongst MBA students in Eastern Europe. So no, MBA stands for married but available. And that just took my sense of humor. I thought that was very funny. So I share that one with you. I think we have to not take ourselves too seriously as coaches. And then maybe that's our biggest defense.
Yes. Thank you, David. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank
It's
you,
been a pleasure.
everyone, for attending. And please continue to connect with ICF South Florida to join the other events that we have. Happy ICW Week. Thank you.